Hello, everyone. My name is Elisa Ewan, and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at Teachers College, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for the Alumni Career Development Webinar series featuring Shana Sharan. The webinar series covers a range of career topics and includes speakers from a variety of backgrounds. The series is co-sponsored by the TC Office of Career Services and the Office of Alumni Relations. Videos of past webinars are available on our website at www.tc.edu/alumni/career-webinars. Today, alumna Shana Sharan presents From Grumpy to Gritty, using mindfulness to overcome employee resistance during organizational change. Shana has over 20 years of experience in the technology industry. She is a visionary leader with a superior track record directing large, complex global programs across HR, including leadership and development, employee engagement, and performance management. Just a quick few things before we start. If you have any questions during the presentation for Shana, please feel free to chat her through the chat function. If you have any technical questions or having issues with the audio, you can send those questions to me through the question panel or chat me directly. And now, without further ado, here's Shana.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Welcome, everyone. As Elisa mentioned, you can use the chat function to ask any questions throughout the session, and I'll get to as many as I can. So thank you for joining. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Shana Sharan. I'm a graduate of Teachers College from the class of 2004. I've worked in technology companies doing several different types of work, ranging from consulting to marketing to human resources and change management. I recently left my career at Salesforce after 15 amazing years, and I'm focusing on bringing mindfulness into companies and how it can be used as a tool to thrive through organizational change. So let me tell you a bit about why I'm so passionate about this topic. So back in 2004, at the age of 37, I was diagnosed with cancer. I thought parenting a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at the time was hard enough, and then that happened. I stepped out of work for about a year to take care of my health, and fortunately had successful treatment, so I went back to work. But during that year, I realized the power of mindfulness. With this, I learned it's possible to deal with something in your life that you have absolutely no control over. In fact, when I went back to work, I had come back into an organization where there was leadership change. As a company, we were undergoing a broader transition, and it drove a lot of uncertainty. Decisions were being made, and I had no control over it. So I leveraged the tool of mindfulness to navigate and realize that there is real power in this platform. And frankly, we constantly see changes like this occur at work. As employees, we go through mergers, acquisitions, inherit new bosses, take on roles that were given to us. And for many, our reaction to these changes puts us in a grumpy or negative state of mind. These changes impact us. They impact our productivity, they impact our brand, how we show up at work. And the quicker we can process these changes in a positive manner, the faster we can get back on track to become more productive. And remember, this is about the human component that often gets overlooked, and change happens one individual at a time. So there was the aha moment for me, and I wanted to bring these two components together, mindfulness and change management. Mindfulness is extremely powerful in helping us navigate change, and navigating change is extremely important for success at the workplace. And that's what really brings me here today, is to share a technique that I've been working on that uses mindfulness to help you develop grit so that you can successfully navigate through the change cycle. So everyone, for today, I would like you to quickly grab a pen and a paper, or if you're sitting at your desktop, then just go ahead and pop open a Word document, etc. Or if you're on your mobile device, pop open your notepad. But I'm going to be going through some exercises today to help you leverage the power of this framework. So I do like to kind of keep the session interactive and engaging. So what I would like to do is I've created some polls, and I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. And I'd like everybody to go ahead and answer this question. Hopefully everybody sees the poll. And what I would like you to do is, whether you're a leader or you're an individual contributor, how important do you think it is for a leader to help guide your team through an organizational change and essentially come out ahead? So take a minute to answer that. So it looks like some people are saying that it is, the majority, about almost 80% are saying that it's very important. Some are saying that it's important, and some are saying it's fairly important. So that's good. It sounds like we're all kind of aligned. It is very important, in fact. If you want your team to be highly productive and innovative, it's certainly important. People that don't accept change and don't go through this process essentially end up creating a toxic environment by staying in such a negative state. So thank you for taking part in that poll there. All right, so as I mentioned in the previous slide, or the slide that I was just on, one of the ways that we can help individuals deal with change is by using mindfulness. But first, let's take a minute to define what mindfulness is in the context of this session. So mindfulness in its definition, well, there are many definitions as per practitioners. We know there's several practitioners in this field, but there is a core theme here. And when we look at experts in the field and we look at scientific research, we have a common theme. And for today's purpose, and we talk about organizational change at the workplace, we're really talking about self-awareness and recognizing what you are doing and feeling in that moment. Recognizing your attitude, your tone, your thoughts, your feelings, and how you show up at work during times of change is being mindful. So that's the context that we're going to be looking at today as we go through this presentation. So research shows that there are many benefits of taking a mindfulness approach during organizational changes, and I've listed my top as they relate to work life. So it shows that neurological benefits of mindfulness have been linked to an increase of emotional intelligence, specifically around empathy and self-regulation. It's the development of these areas that contribute to our ability to manage conflict and communicate much more effectively. Mindfulness also enables us to take a step back and consider alternative perspectives rather than simply reacting to events. Now, traditional change management helps to move the organization from employees from a current state to a future state, and the expected benefits are realized over time. So for example, if your company is going through an acquisition, which in the long term creates strategic and financial value for the company, yet one of the major factors in determining success of acquisitions is how well the two companies integrate. And oftentimes that comes down to the human element and how the two cultures intersect. Yet that individualized perspective is often overlooked. And if you can't get your employees to move forward, the change is likely to fail, which is then gives you broader negative downstream impacts. But if you can help them move through the cycle, they will end up much stronger and much more resilient than ever before. So if you want to learn more about some of this research that's been taking place, obviously you could go ahead and look at these things as well. Okay, so I want to ask another question. That being said, with all the great research that's out there and all the buzz around mindfulness at work, how many of you are actually using mindfulness at work? So you can use the chat function and answer a quick yes, or you can go under your attendee and use the raise hand function. But I just love to kind of get a sense of how many are kind of experiencing that at work. Okay, I've seen a couple hand raises. Anyone want to use the chat function? Okay, so it looks like we have some possibly using this at work. And how many of you actually have systems or processes at work that integrate mindfulness into your projects or change management cycle? Okay, so it looks like there's some people that are saying yes, some people that are saying no, some people, wow, using it back in 1986, that's fantastic. That's a while back. That's fantastic. That was so relevant back then too. And some people say there's no process, etc. Okay. All right. Well, today I'm going to share with you how you can essentially integrate mindfulness into your organizational change process. All right. Alyssa, do you mind moving that panel away from the screen? It looks like the questions panel is still kind of hanging out there. So now I'm going to show you an illustration of how people typically navigate and move through this cycle. And I'm going to actually have you participate in the process over the next several slides. So please get your pen and paper ready, or your notepad or what have you, in order for you to experience this, to really see the value and the power in this. So this is a typical progression in which you can see yourself or your team members when you're going through a change. Okay. Now, as a leader, it's important for you to recognize that everyone will be along a different part of the spectrum, but it's generally what one will experience. Okay. Especially if the change is not something that they're brought into and it's not something that they had control over, they're going to go through this cycle of from grumpy to acceptance, to engaged and gritty. And I'll go through the details and deep dive in a second around this. But ideally, what we want to do is move our team quickly from grumpy all the way to gritty to get more productive quicker. And also, just as a leader, it's probably a good idea you yourself go through this exercise first, and then probably take your team through these shifts. And that's important because as a leader, you need to be authentic. You can't really lead a team through a change successfully if you yourself are not either in the engaged or gritty state. All right, so this is now where I need your participation. All right, I guess everyone get a pen and a paper, and take a second, and I want you to think about something that is frustrating you about a change at work or maybe in grad school or school that's being forced upon you. A change that maybe you currently have no control over. So think about that for a minute. Maybe you have a new board member that came on, maybe you have a new boss, you went through an organizational change, leadership, merger, acquisition, your team is getting divided into two, etc. So think about that and write it down. And then I want you to write down one or two things that were frustrating about that change. Did you have a choice in the matter? Did it not go the way you expected it to go? Is it something that's going to drastically impact your job or your team? And then I want you to notice. I want you to notice what you're feeling about that. You're obviously frustrated. But what else are you feeling in this moment? Are you disappointed? Are you feeling resentful? Are you feeling guilty for maybe inheriting someone else's team? Okay, so it's natural and normal to go through this feeling, obviously, of grumpiness. It's disruptive, and you feel like you've had no control over the decision. So give me a show of hands. Is everybody good with this? Is everybody taking a minute to write this down? What change is frustrating them and what feelings they have that they're experiencing from this frustration? You can type it in the chat or you can raise your hand. And just type a Y in the chat. Okay, great. We've got some hand raises going. Perfect. Okay. So what's happening here? This is the cycle again. And here we are in the grumpy state. You're probably not very open to new ideas from this change that's being forced upon you. You're probably focused on the negativity. You're frustrated and upset. And again, there's a good chance that you're frustrated because it's possible you had no choice in this matter. And it's natural and normal to go through this state of grumpiness. And our goal is to get you to move through this cycle and move through this state as quickly as you can. So I'm going to offer a variety of leadership tips through this session today. And if you are a leader and your team is going through a change, I want you to take a second and I really want you to honor the fact that, you know, grumpiness is obviously, it's a normal thing when people are upset about the change. I think it's disruptive to people's lives. You need time to honor it. And this is not the time as a leader to teach in the grumpy state. You're really not going to move the needle at this point. Just acknowledge it and tell them that you understand. Not everyone's going to have the same reaction. Some are okay with the change, some are not. But talking about the metrics and how that's going to improve this, you know, there's a good reason behind it and all that good stuff, that's fine. But just know that change is human and it happens one person at a time. Okay, let's try to move you and your team out of this state. I also want you to note as a leader that people process change privately. It's a very private thing, and honor that. So you're grumpy, you're upset. We just talked about something that you're frustrated about. You've written it down, you've written down your feelings. So now I want you to ask yourself, what happens if you stay in this state? What happens if you stay in this grumpy state? And what are the consequences of that state? So take a minute. And I want people to kind of throw out some ideas here. What happens if you stay in this grumpy state? Let's put it in the chat function. It looks like Lena has lost the audio. I hope nobody else lost the audio. You even feel more grumpy over time. Very true. You're almost like in this endless cycle of grumpiness. What else can happen? You transfer the feelings to others you care about. Very good. That's exactly what happens. Productivity and performance decline, environment gets toxic, you influence other people, negative thoughts. Exactly. That's exactly what happens. So the consequences of staying grumpy are, you know, pretty strong. And how are you feeling now that you know you're upset about something? How are you feeling about knowing the consequences? You know, this state of mind basically impacts your brand. It stops you from moving forward. It impacts how you show up with others, your attitude, and your relationships. So definitely it has its consequences. Oops, I'm sorry, I overshot here. So now I want you to think about this, is you have a choice. You have a choice to move past the grumpy, okay? You have the choice to move forward. And we know that staying in the state is not productive. In fact, it will likely cause stress, health issues. It'll impact our personal brand at work or school. So you can make that choice. You can make that choice to move past the grumpy state. So take that same frustration that we talked about in the beginning. And for a minute, I want you to think about what are a couple of good things that can come from this. And you can't say nothing because you've already told me that you've made the choice to move past the grumpy. So think about that in your own, write it down. It's your own personal journey here. Tell me, what are a couple of good things that can come out of this? And staying present here, that's really the hardest part, because you're essentially going and shifting your mind from the negative to what the possible outcomes could be. And it's really important that you stay present with this, because you're basically going through a grand reopening here and you're asking yourself, what good things can come from this? And you have to keep your intention set on that. This is a practice, but you must stay present when asking yourself this question. So write down 1 or 2 things that you think can come of this change. Okay. Now, you've taken a minute and you're starting to recognize that there actually are benefits to this change. Maybe this change is actually doable. So now, if you notice something has changed in you, you can see that there's some positives coming out of this situation. So do you notice you're already starting to kind of feel better about this change? Let's take a look at this a little more deeply. I want you to take a minute to write down what this would feel like. What this would feel like if these positive things actually happened. So, how are you feeling about this now? What if these changes actually happened? How are you now feeling about this shift? Do you think you're feeling better a little bit? Do you think you're feeling worse, or you're feeling about the same? So it looks like we have about 70% people are feeling better than before and 29% of the same. And I challenge you, for those of you that are feeling the same, were those benefits personalized that you realized? Because that's a very important step. Think about what the personal benefits are and personal benefits that can derive from that organizational change, because then you're still in the negative and you need to come out of that. Okay. So all these techniques that we're going through are very empowering. And notice, for those of you that have started feeling better and your feeling has shifted, you've probably become a lot more open-minded, willing to listen to other ideas, feeling more calm and less anxious about the change. And you can probably think more rationally and become more approachable. So now you can find yourself into the acceptance stage. What else might you be feeling at the stage if you're accepting? Let's use the chat function. What else might you be feeling, or the questions function, whatever, if you are accepting? You're willing to be rational, you're willing to listen. You're in a listening mode, you can let things go, you're willing to work together. Exactly. You're willing to explore new ideas, etc. So I think now you're ready to kind of think about moving from acceptance to engaged. And you have to think about how can you personally benefit from this change? What are the personal benefits that can come out of this? And you can't say nothing because you've already chosen, again, to move past that negative stage and move past the grumpiness, and it won't serve you to stay in that state. So how can you take advantage of this change? So you can actually move yourself into the next stage of going from acceptance to engaged. You could think about what new skills can you develop in this process? What value can I bring to this change? So think about that. What new skills can you develop? Open the corner of possibility in your mind that yes, there is a personal benefit here. What opportunities can you see for yourself in this? Maybe you can learn a new skill. Maybe you have an opportunity to interact with leaders that you haven't interacted with before. Maybe you have an opportunity to rebrand yourself. You have an opportunity to focus on career development, maybe shadow somebody on a project, maybe gain a mentor. So choose something to work on or do which personally benefits you. So take a minute and I want you to write this down on your paper or whatever in your notepad. What new skills can you think you can develop through this change process? What value you can bring to this change? And if you're sitting on the other side of this change, in the end, after this change is over, what do you want that to look like? Okay, so I hope everybody's written that down. If you need another minute, just raise your hand. So how do you think one might be feeling now in the stage of being engaged? Use the chat function or the question function and tell me a little bit about it. How are you feeling? Do you think you're feeling hopefully better? Seeing kind of the light at the end of the tunnel? Seeing that you're more engaged? Maybe excited, maybe empowered through this change? So one thing I wanted to highlight here is for leaders. And if you are a leader of a team that's going through this change, and this is really an opportunity for leaders to develop their employees. Leaders, you can find out what each person on the team, what skill set they want to develop and how they want to go through this change experience. Do they want to shadow somebody? Do they want to get more exposure into a certain skill set? And you can hold yourself accountable to that as a leader and really develop your team, meeting one-on-one with them, tracking their exposure, et cetera, whatever it is. Maybe somebody wants to get into technical documentation and that's what they want to get out of this change. Maybe somebody wants to learn new skills and go through the demo room and be part of something totally different. Give them that opportunity. That's really how you develop and engage your team through this cycle. Give them a chance to do something different. So once you move past the acceptance, you can start seeing that the personal benefit, think about not what only you can gain, but what you might be able to contribute as well. And now you're excited about the potential opportunities and what this might bring you. You're much more present in your mindset and your mind is shifting. And leaders, this is again an opportunity for you to really step up because now you can essentially invite your team to really be a part of this change. And this is where a lot of leaders fail because they don't really include people in this shift and they lose out on getting more from their team. So look for ways to engage your team during this process and build leadership development opportunities for your team. So initially, you were frustrated once you started, and then you shifted, and now you're in the state of being engaged. And how going forward you can approach the change differently. So the next time something like this happens, you're more ready and you're more open-minded for the change. So you can think about, what is all the good that came from the change? And list as many as you can. And what did you learn from this change? And how you can take these lessons forward into the next change. How you can apply what you've learned so that when a bigger change comes away that's totally unexpected, you can get through that in the most productive way. So how might one be feeling now that they've gone through this shift? I'd like you to use the chat function or the question section. How do you think one might be feeling now? Now you can solve things. Now you have grit. You know you can get through it. You know you can thrive. And you've really started to change your attitude. So when something goes awry with that product launch and a sudden pivot's required, you can now get through it. Things often look scary at the beginning and we make things look way worse than they really are. But if we go through these exercises and these awareness tips and reflection, we can come out much stronger ahead. Motivated, determined, exactly. That's exactly how one would feel. And leaders, you can even go through this with your team. Obviously, those change pieces are very private, but when you do something like a postmortem of the change and walking through that, you can really take these lessons forward to the next change and have people reflect on what good came from that and what they learned. So now you're in this gritty state, right? You're totally engaged. You think no matter what happens, we got this. You have a can-do attitude. You're more collaborative. You're in an innovative state. You can think clearly. You're excited about the challenge. You can problem solve. There's so many benefits to getting to this stage. And of course, these are the benefits of developing grit. I mean, essentially, you're in a designer's mind. You've become a lot more innovative. You're essentially riding on a surfboard while others are just keeping their head above water or they get sucked into this wave. So now you have the ability to create and innovate. And another leadership tip. So as a leader, your job is to really help your team realize the benefits through this facilitation. And you can help your team realize how gritty they've become, how far they've come along, how much progress they have made. And this is the opportunity to teach. When you have people in this state, when you have your employees in this state, teach them the positive after the change has been done. And go through this exercise with them. Let the lessons come from the employee's mouth. What does it feel like to have grit in times of change? As a team, what does it feel like? As a team, what gets in the way of developing grit? What can really help us thrive? These are great brainstorming questions to ask your team. And you really have an opportunity here to move them forward. So I think, as a step-by-step summary of how we got to where we are, learn to take yourself through this process. And then you can use this process on your team and guide them through these shifts. But first, we started out when we were in a grumpy state, and we had to recognize the harm, essentially, of staying in that state. It didn't really do us any good. We'd become toxic. It was just not a good situation for the people that we care about and those around us and the other team members. And then we slowly start to see, well, what are some of the high level benefits that we could see come out of this change? And you have to really stick with that intent. And that's the piece that's really important. You have to be able to see the benefits, and you have to think hard, and you can't say nothing. If you say nothing, then this whole exercise is not useful to you, and you're choosing to stay in the grumpy. So to see the benefits of those change, create new opportunities to benefit personally from that change, whether it's developing a new skill set, learning new techniques, shadowing, working with different leaders, getting yourself exposure, improving your overall brand at work, etc. Create those opportunities. And then once you do that, you can essentially be the example of thriving and becoming a positive force of change in your organization and becoming a highly productive, motivated individual through these times of change. So this is not really what I say a challenge, but it's rather an invitation for you to experience this framework yourself or on your next change, or use it on a friend, or use it on a colleague, etc. And really take the time to have them dig deep into those benefits. And when we learn to love change, we can be much happier. We're actually teaching a life skill here. When times change and things change, we're actually learning to rebound much faster. And I'll end this with, kind of a short story here, but really, in the end of my career at this company, I actually was laid off and I was very grumpy for a long time. But what happened is this whole shift caused me to transition my career and essentially be here with you and share with you that's so important to realize these benefits. So I'm taking my expertise and I'm sharing it with organizations, making a bigger difference and actually reinventing myself and following my passion to help other organizations thrive through change. So I ask you to try this out. Take this challenge on yourself or your friends, or invitation rather, and experiment and see what happens when you use this. Whether it's a personal change that's going on or a change at work, I encourage you to do that. And, that's what we have for today. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take questions. And let's see, I'll go ahead and pop open the questions poll. Yes, I would absolutely love to talk more about this. And if you have any questions or you think anyone else might benefit from this presentation, please let me know. You can send me an email with it, shana.idnani@gmail.com. I know that Elisa will be posting this presentation. So again, you can always reach out to me. But I'd be more than happy to open the line up to any questions right now, or you can enter them in the chat or question area. We have about 20 minutes for Q&A. How can I help my coworkers? Yes, so I think this is a great, framework to be able to use actually for your coworkers, is to give them this opportunity, invite them to go through this exercise with you. Obviously in a private setting, just like I asked you to keep your responses private on paper, walk them through, first understand obviously what is the change it is and what change is going on and what's the frustration behind it, etc. Walk them through that cycle, help them realize what the benefits are, etc. And it's not something that has to be done all in one session, but obviously over time, you'll get to the point of, how you can essentially engage them and what they want out of this change, the benefits that they want to see out of it. So that's something really that you can definitely do that. So the boss is not one to talk to them and help them. So how can I initiate essentially without overstepping? So yes, that's a great point. So I think, you know, if you can have an individual conversation with your boss and ask the boss if, hey, if this is okay, if you can go ahead and walk them through, you know, a brief exercise, and maybe that's part of an offsite, or maybe it's just a general meeting where your boss essentially, you know, if it initially doesn't want to be there, that's fine. But I would go ahead and start, you know, getting your employees and round them up and say, I'd love to take you through this opportunity so we can have a positive outcome of this change, and have them essentially participate in that. And maybe even ask your boss would be willing to participate and acknowledge those leadership tips that I gave. Acknowledge the fact that, you know, your boss should acknowledge with the team that, yes, they're going through times of change. And so maybe this is a role that you can take on to invite the team to be a part of a change and take them through this exercise, and then report back to your boss if he's not willing to do that. And then he can see the benefits that come out of it and bring him on board gradually in time. Great questions. Thank you for asking.
If you have any more questions, please feel free to put them through the question panel, or you can chat them. I'll wait a few minutes and see if we get any last-minute questions. Looks like we don't. Well, Shana, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise with the TC community. A video of this presentation will be available on our website. That address again is www.tc.edu/alumni/career-webinars. Please visit our website for more information about our monthly webinars and upcoming events. Our next webinar will be on Tuesday, November 13th, called Curiosity-Based Learning: What if Curiosity is a Learning Tool, by alumnus Matt Murray. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.